Yeah.
What exactly this game, trashing and asking for their titles to be removed and so on and so forth. I think it's part of the game to try and divert our attention towards them and away from Camilla Parker Bowles. You did mention Diana being looming large, and I think it rang a bell to me because whenever currently now we have the Prince and Princess of Wales in William and Kate.
Yes.
But every time I hear on the media Princess of Wales, I always think about Diana.
That's
I never think about Kate.
Yeah.
I'll never ever think about Kate. I'll always think about Diana. And I think she does loom large, but the diminishment of the royal family is not down to Harry and Meghan. I think, unfortunately, and I'll have to be honest here, people may not like it, but I think the diminishment of the royal family is down to Camilla and Charles.
It was the kind of radio call that slices through months, if not years, of media noise, cutting straight to the truth in a way that's both startling and refreshing. On Natasha Devon's LBC show, a caller stepped forward and said the words so few in mainstream UK media have dared to utter without heavy-handed but statements or obligatory royalist disclaimers. The diminishing of the royal family isn't down to Harry and Meghan, it's down to Camilla and Charles. It was a declaration that shifted the conversation away from the tabloid-fueled blame game that's been hounding the Sussexes since they set foot in California, and right back toward the real sources of public disillusionment with the monarchy. And Natasha Devon didn't push back, she leaned in. She understood, and the caller went further, tying it all back to a figure whose shadow the Windsors will never escape, Princess Diana. When the caller said Princess Diana looms large over royal life, it wasn't just a romantic flourish or a nostalgic nod, it was a truth embedded in British collective memory. Diana isn't a ghost in the tabloid sense. She's a living force in the public imagination, an icon whose warmth, vulnerability, and defiance permanently rewired the public's expectations of what a royal could be. You don't erase someone like that by unveiling plaques, smiling on balconies, or hiding behind protocol. Diana's humanity still stands in stark contrast to the institution's coldness, and every time the palace mishandles a human moment, whether that's Meghan's candid Oprah interview, Harry's open discussion of mental health, or the family's barely disguised disdain for emotional transparency, the public is reminded of what they lost when she died. And here's the part the British media refuses to confront. Harry and Meghan's story is not the cause of the monarchy's reputational decline. It's the symptom of an institution that has been mishandling its own public relations since long before Meghan set foot in Kensington Palace. The cracks were there in the 90s when Charles's infidelity became global gossip, when Camilla was painted as the third person in the marriage, and when the firm seemed more concerned with preserving its image than supporting Diana in her unhappiness. The Crown survived those days not because it fixed itself, but because it banked on public forgetfulness. But the internet era doesn't forget, and neither do the millions who watched a grieving 12-year-old Harry walk behind his mother's coffin. The caller was right to put Charles and Camilla at the center of this discussion. King Charles is not the unifying figure the monarchy wishes he was. He is the man who ascended the throne already carrying decades of baggage, from the messy breakdown of his marriage to Diana, to his tone-deaf moments in the modern political landscape. Camilla, while rebranded over the years into the image of a dutiful consort, still carries the weight of that history. What's so fascinating about this LBC moment is that it reflected a conversation many have been having privately for years, but, rarely see articulated on mainstream platforms. The idea that the monarchy's problems are self-inflicted. Harry and Meghan didn't invent royal scandals. They were born into a family where scandal is practically an heirloom. When the caller mentioned Diana's looming presence, they touched on something profoundly uncomfortable for the monarchy. Diana's legacy is a double-edged sword. On one hand, she brought unparalleled global affection to the royal family. On the other, she set a standard for empathy, relatability, and accessibility that, honestly, no one else in the firm has truly matched. And Harry, more than anyone else, embodies that legacy. His approach to public life, informal, emotionally open, willing to take risks for causes he believes in, is a direct inheritance from his mother. Meghan, in many ways, became the catalyst that pushed Harry to live more fully into that inheritance, even if it meant severing ties with the institution that raised him. To the monarchy's defenders, this is unforgivable. To those who remember Diana's struggles, it's admirable, inevitable even. Look at the timeline of declining royal popularity, and you'll see it doesn't align neatly with Harry and Meghan's Oprah interview or their Netflix series. The downward trend began long before, tied to public skepticism about the monarchy's relevance in the 21st century, frustrations over taxpayer funding, and growing awareness of Britain's colonial past. When Charles became king, there was no nationwide surge of excitement. The coronation, while ornate, felt like an expensive relic in a cost-of-living crisis. Meghan and Harry didn't create that disconnect. They simply shone a light on it by living their lives outside the royal bubble, proving there is another way. This is why the caller's point matters. By identifying Charles and Camilla as the sources of the monarchy's diminishing appeal, they refused to let the narrative be lazily pinned on the Sussexes. They reminded listeners that the public's perception of the monarchy is shaped by its leaders. And right now, those leaders are a king with a history of scandal and a queen consort still viewed with suspicion. Harry and Meghan's distance from the institution isn't the disease. It's a symptom of the monarchy's inability to evolve without punishing those who challenge its traditions. And perhaps the most striking thing about that call was Natasha Devon's openness to it. In a media climate where even slight criticism of the monarchy is often sandwiched between caveats, here was a broadcaster allowing a caller to draw a straight line from Diana's legacy to the present moment, and to place the blame squarely on the people currently wearing the crown. It was a moment that cut through the noise, one that reminded us that honest conversation about the monarchy is still possible, even on mainstream airwaves. Because here's the truth. The monarchy has survived wars, divorces, abdications, and scandals not by being flawless, but by controlling the story. In the age of social media and 24-hour news, that control is slipping. Diana's story is still being told, now through the lens of her youngest son's life. The public can see the parallels. They remember the way the palace dismissed Diana's unhappiness as personal weakness rather than a structural problem. They remember the media frenzy that hounded her, the way paparazzi chased her down to her death, and the coldness that followed. And when they see Meghan treated with the same cruelty, from racist headlines to character assassination, it's not hard to connect the dots. So yes, Princess Diana looms large. She looms over every balcony wave, every staged family portrait, every speech about service. She looms over the awkward silences when race is brought up, over the defensive statements about modernizing the monarchy, over the desperate tabloid campaigns to paint Harry and Meghan as villains. The monarchy broke itself decades ago, and the cracks have only widened under Charles and Camilla. That caller was right. Natasha Devon was right to let them say it. And the rest of us? We'd do well to remember that defending Harry and Meghan is not just about liking them as individuals. It's about acknowledging a pattern of behavior from the royal family that's as old as Diana's heartbreak and just as damaging today. The monarchy's greatest threat isn't a Duke and Duchess in California. It's its own refusal to learn from the past. A past that will always have Diana's face in the frame.